Clint, we could probably do a show for 8 days on just how to operate one of these things. So, and just all the details that go around it.
Welcome to Talking Shop. I'm Clint Newell, president of Clint Newell Auto Group in Roseburg, Oregon. Talking Shop is a show where I sit down with some of our employees here at the dealership to discuss current topics in the auto industry. From time to time, I'll also sit down with members of the local community to discuss other business topics and current events. We'll share insights and stories about business, community, and what's going on today. You can anticipate learning tips and tricks on how you can save money at the dealership, get better deals, and take better care of your vehicle. And hear some awesome stories from successful people in our community. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for listening to Talking Shop. Welcome to another episode of Talking Shop. I'm sitting here today with Frank Mesa, and Frank's our parts and service director here at Clint Newell Auto Group. And Frank, you'll have been here 20 years this year, and it's been a long haul in many respects, and it's flown by in a lot of others. But we've experienced, a lot of changes over the years in service and maintenance of vehicles, and things that are going on today aren't exactly the same as they were 20 years ago when you came here. And so we thought we'd spend a little time to talk about that. And one of the things that I always like to dive right into are some of the mysteries of vehicle maintenance. There's a lot of mysteries out there, and I think a lot of confusion from vehicle owners today, knowing exactly, what do they need to do, when do they need to do it, what should they do, what don't they need to do. All those sorts of things can really confuse a lot of customers, and we try to eliminate that, obviously, through educating them on what all's involved in owning their car. But, what are some of the things that you see today that are common occurrences with customers wondering about what to do with their cars?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what customers deal with today is there's really kind of three main topics out there that wrap around this. You have customers that really get kind of educated that all you got to do is change your oil and drive your vehicle into the sunset. Sure. And those are probably the most disappointed customers with any product. And they fall into that. And then as their car ages and gets older, they start seeing some very costly breakdowns and things that aren't holding up the way they thought they should. And we realize there's always those stories where the one person did that and it worked out great for them, but it's not the common, it's not the norm.
Well, obviously, a vehicle has a lot of different lubrication points. And I think the oil change is the one that gets talked about the most often because it really is the most frequent service. It's the one thing you do have to do the most. But when you think about it, there's a lot of fluids in a vehicle. Obviously, you got engine oil, yep. You got transmission fluid, you got coolant, you got brake fluid.
You got engine fuel, and with where fuel qualities are today and
sure.
What we're dealing with.
With the diesel, now we have diesel exhaust fluid.
Yep.
There's all these different things that we deal with. One of the things that I often tell customers when it comes to maintaining the fluids of a vehicle, it's kind of a good news, bad news scenario, because the good news is you don't have to do things as often as you used to do. Oil changes, when I started in this business, 35 years ago, it was every 2,000 miles right. is what people that wanted to take care of their car, that's what they did. They changed oil every 2,000. Then it went to 3,000. Then it seemed like that 3,000 mile interval was pretty common for a long time. And now it's kind of stretched to 5. And some manufacturers are even recommending 10 on certain vehicles with certain types of oils. So, that's really gotten stretched out. So, the good news is, yeah, you don't have to do things quite as often as you used to. The bad news is that when it needs it, it really needs it, yeah. And it's something that you really can't put off. And obviously we've seen it quite a bit with engine coolant. The engine coolant cycle's gotten stretched way longer from what it used to be in the old days. But now if you take it too far and you don't change it when it needs changing, things get bad and ugly pretty quickly.
Yes. And, you touched on it too. The manufacturers, they have a certain recommendation, and these are critical fluids when you're looking at engine, transmission, coolant, brake fluid, on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through a maintenance guide, there's many manufacturers out there that barely have any recommended maintenance interval for those fluids at all. So it creates a lot of confusion for the consumer.
Right.
This is why an inspection becomes very, very critical. And I think we're all smart enough to know that there's no fluid that's going to last the lifetime of your vehicle.
Sure.
And I know that we want to hear that, and it sounds great in theory, but we know different. So, what we try to do here at Clint Newell Motors is make sure that we are using an adequate service recommendation that's going to be wrapped around the customer's needs and what they're doing and what they're trying to get to happen with their vehicle, and also upon inspection. So we look at these fluids, we check them, we're looking at the condition, and we're advising on proper intervals.
So what should a vehicle owner do? It's like, okay, you got this gray area. Do I need to get my oil changed now or do I not? I mean, what's a good recommendation for them to follow in terms of, how do I properly maintain my car over the life cycle of the vehicle? What's the smart thing to do? How should I do this?
The smart thing to do is, you mentioned oil change intervals. Be consistent with your oil changes. It all starts there. Today's vehicles most of them are all synthetic oils. Many people like to advise that you can go up to 10,000 miles on synthetic oil. Here at Clint Newell Motors, because of our market condition, what we deal with for our environment, the hills, the temperature swings that we deal with, we don't find 10,000 miles is a very safe interval for your vehicle if you plan to keep it long term. We like to see a customer do that about every 5,000 miles. It's a very safe, easy place to do it. Many of the manufacturers have actually dialed their interval back to 5,000 miles, even with synthetic oil, because we were seeing too many catastrophic failures. So it starts there.
Right.
Then, work with your shop, work with us, and let us inspect those fluids as we move along. And as we start to watch them change, and we use a green, yellow, and a red light approach to that, and we will advise them when those fluids are starting to near the end. Now, you can get pretty elaborate with that, but the main thing is just to realize that, we're going to look at it, and when it starts to look and it's in the caution area, it's time to change that fluid. You don't want to, just like you said, you don't want to wait to the last minute. That's not the time to do it. If you waited that far, you've already created some wear in those components that is really, there's no need for that. When people really start looking at the minimal cost of maintenance to take care of their car, it's such inexpensive insurance just to take care of your vehicle and change those fluids out earlier rather than later.
Right. So if you change it at 5,000 instead of 7,500 over the course of the car, maybe that's, a few more oil changes, but you've extended the life and you minimize the wear in the engine.
Tremendously.
So that can really pay dividends depending on the situation.
Yeah, we can survey our technicians. They'll tell you we're seeing more catastrophic engine failures today than we ever have.
Well, and you can see it by looking at the fluid that's coming out of them when you're draining the oil. You can tell one that's gone too long. It gets pretty ugly.
Yeah, and so I know it's easy to say that these extended intervals are a great idea, but the results and the proof of it are not adding up.
Yes.
And so, it just doesn't really make sense to go down that road.
So what you're saying is, service your car every 5,000 miles and you can stay out of trouble.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then that gives a chance for a technician to be looking at that. You got a certified tech looking everything over.
Sure.
And then, I think a big role is your service advisor. When you have a good relationship with your service advisor, I think that's imperative. They're your point of contact. They're very educated. They get a lot of training. They're going to know what to recommend to you as well and why you need it. And we've done a great job here of really using a 3-tiered approach for a customer based on their needs and what they're comfortable with.
Right.
We're going to obviously recommend what the manufacturer recommends so that, you keep your warranty intact and, you just want to do the minimums to take care of your car. And then we're going to show you what we recommend for what we call everyday use, everyday driving in, life in our area. And then we have an extreme menu, which is just really for guys that really don't maintenance their cars very well. They kind of abuse things. They let things go too far. And that's kind of an extreme case. And I think that really fits the majority of our clients. But obviously a service advisor is going to help you with communication and your technician put together a custom plan for you.
Right. And that brings up another point in terms of, getting your car on a maintenance track in terms of taking care of it over a period of several years, because the average customer keeps their car a lot longer than they used to.
Yeah.
So, people are keeping their cars beyond 5 years. They're keeping them 10 years. And that's pretty typical around here. We see a lot of that. One thing I've always been an advocate for is develop a service relationship. Don't go one place one time, another place another time, somewhere else after that, another place after that. If you go to the same place every time, you can develop a track record, you have some history,
That's right.
and then that service facility can rely upon that maintenance history to know where you're at and know what you need. And, I've always been an advocate of that relationship can pay a lot of indirect benefit to a customer just through knowing what's going on. It gives us a chance to know the customer. It gives the customer a chance to know us. And those are both important pieces.
Absolutely. And that relationship pays off dividends long term. And I don't know, every driver's a little different, but I think, when you look at our area, the average miles per year for most people around here runs right around 15,000 miles a year. Mm-hmm. So when you're a customer and you're going to be loyal to a place, that means, on average, you're going to see a service center maybe once or twice a year, maybe 3 at best. If, you're really, really that year, you're right on the end of the 15,000. And so, it takes a little time to develop that relationship.
Sure.
And so, it really does help. And the great thing is that, with technology today and the fact that we have an amazing network system here that tracks all that stuff, we have great service history. We can stay up with it for the customer and really help predict and keep them on track with it.
Yeah. It's a lot simpler when you know what's been done to the vehicle over a course of time.
Yeah.
And it makes it real simple. Which brings up another point. A lot of customers don't realize how simple it really can be to maintain your car. Because like I said, the good news is you don't have to do as much as often as you used to. And yet, sometimes we see a lot of other shops, a lot of other facilities, they recommend everything every time. And I think a lot of people have run into that here and there, depending on where they go. It's like, well, they told me I needed new transmission fluid, I needed new coolant, I needed this filter, I needed that filter, and so on, when in reality they didn't need it at all. And obviously I always refer to that as item of the day, which is something that, I'm an advocate against. I don't like that item of the day mentality where everybody that comes in gets a fuel filter today. No, that's not it. You get a fuel filter when you need it.
That's right.
And, having that relationship established with that history, it's real simple. The customer only has to get what's due at that time, and that's what we recommend. So
yeah, the problem there is there's so much bad information out there. And then I think people struggle because there's so many people that, as soon as someone recommends something, they're always, we live unfortunately in a negative society. So they're always trying to shoot someone down and not really look at a situation as to why is it being recommended. And they really, what we watch a lot of customers is take input from the wrong people. Right. And, I am just, I know the internet's a great tool and you can use it for a lot of good stuff, but there's just a lot of bad information out there.
Of course.
And so again, I think you can hear, depending on who you want to talk to, you can hear it from one extreme to another. I think some people think that it's a dealership thing, and it's not. I got a guy that I have a good relationship with locally, has a local shop, great guy. They have millions of dollars of equipment, and it's to listen to them is just to sound like listening to you and me and everyone else, and what the customers don't understand what's going on. And he's just trying to help customers take care of their vehicles. And customers, because there's so much bad information out there, they really get led down a lot of wrong paths. So I think that's where it comes back to that relationship. Build a relationship with a shop, get to know them, understand long-term, we have their best interest at heart. We don't want to lose our customers. We don't want to take advantage of them. We want to help them have the best ownership experience with their vehicle, period. Sure. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want them to have a great experience throughout the life cycle of the vehicle. That kind of, brings me into my next point. You kind of hit on it a little bit with dealership service. A lot of people have the perception that, dealership service is just too expensive, that when you go to the dealership, you just pay way more than when you go anywhere else. And obviously that's a myth that we consistently deal with. Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, that's something we deal with all the time. And there's two elements to that I think that people need to understand and customers sometimes miss. And that is, when you're doing a repair versus maintenance, all of our maintenance stuff is very competitively priced. We shop it every quarter. We're looking at our maintenance prices. We're making sure we're competitive in the marketplace because it's necessary. Customers have choices. We know that.
Right.
But we're also trying to provide a price on, maintenance items where we're using OEM equipment and OEM fluids. And I think a lot of people maybe miss that. Yes, you can save money if you want to start using non-OEM items. But what I have found, most people, when they buy a General Motors, they buy it because they believe in GM. They believe in the product. They like what it is. And it is a good product, and it does have good stuff.
Same with Toyota.
That's right. When you buy a Toyota, you want to keep it a Toyota. And what I find interesting is that people will go out and use non-certified centers, and they'll use non-OEM parts. And so for every repair or maintenance they're having done without OEM stuff, they're slowly making their vehicle a non-GM or non-Toyota product.
Right. And obviously the term OEM means the manufacturer's part. And that can be important. You want to keep your car original if you have an original car. And, sometimes using substandard parts can have an impact. Toyota oil filter is a great example.
Absolutely.
Why don't you go ahead and elaborate on the importance of using a Toyota filter if you own a Toyota vehicle?
Yeah, and more today than it was before. But Toyota uses a anti-drainback valve that's built into their filters for most of them, so that when you shut your car off, that valve closes. It keeps oil on the whole top half of your engine so that when you start it up, the next time, that engine has lubrication sitting there waiting to go. When you're using most aftermarket oil filters, non-OEM or original equipment, what happens is that oil completely drains back into the pan, and so when you start up the motor, it has to refill the filter, the oiling system, and then it finally starts lubricating the rest of the motor. And Toyota's done a lot of homework, and what they've found over the years is that can constitute up to almost 80% of the engine wear just from what they call dry starts, and so easily prevented by just an oil filter.
Right. So the Toyota oil filter will prevent a dry start where most of the aftermarket ones will not.
That is correct.
And that's something that, we always try to point out to customers, but it's a little thing that you wouldn't otherwise know or even think about or suspect. But it's all those little details that can make a difference over the long haul.
And I think that's why there's so much bad information out there. And I think an advantage of a dealership is that we see the new technology right away. We're trained on the new technology right away. We're dealing with it right out of the gate. And so a lot of our when we have our engineers that are coming in here and working with us, our field engineers, we're seeing what's going on right from the start, where in the aftermarket world, those guys aren't catching up with that for 4 to 5 years later. I'm not saying we're better. That's not it. It's an exposure issue. It's simply just being exposed to it at a different velocity than what they get to see it. And I'll use today's one of today's vehicles that has created a lot of question in the marketplace. And I'll use 2 of them, but diesels and direct injection. Diesel on their own, a lot of people don't realize how much maintenance a diesel vehicle requires, and the advantage to using some cleaning products to help keep those injectors in good order. And then because of emission standards, because the manufacturers are being pushed to get better mileage and cleaner tailpipe emissions so that we're protecting our environment, direct injection has become so popular, but it requires a ton of maintenance and a ton of care to do it properly. And it's not overly expensive. It's just required if you want to keep your vehicle running well. And people are just starting to learn about that. And yet we've been dealing with that now for several years, here.
Right.
And then going back to oil filters really quick, we have a lot of cartridge oil filters now with what the manufacturers have done. And Toyota and GM both do a great job of making sure they use the right amount of material that filters down to the right micron that keeps stuff clean. I think when people use common sense to things, when something is made cheaper, something has to be trimmed out. Something has to be cut. They're not going to make the same thing for the same price. There's always something being cut off of there. Is there a time and a place when you need to use a more inexpensive or a lesser than part? Absolutely. Are we willing to use those parts here? Yes, as long as we're working with that customer and dealing with that. But I think too often people just look at price and think they're getting the same for the other price, and you're not. There's value to be said for some of that.
Sure. Yeah. Different things have different values naturally. You kind of hit on a little bit of, some of our resources here and some of the things that we do, which kind of moves me into the next topic. And, that's just kind of about what all goes on in a dealership service and parts operation. We got a big place here. There's a lot that goes on every day. And, it's hard to see what that all of that is on the surface. So, talk about a few of the things of what goes on in service and parts and what we deal with. You talked about some manufacturers' resources a little bit. Obviously we got a lot of training involved. A lot of personnel is vital to what we do and how we do it. And then, of course, our economies of scale, due to our size and our daily flow of work and how all that works. Why don't you talk about some of that?
Yeah. So, Clint, we could probably do a show for 8 days on just how to operate one of these things. So, and just all the details that go around it. So a summary version is, guys, for first off, we always look at what our customer touch points are. Where's the customer coming into this? Where are we helping them? What do they need? And so there's obviously, we provide a lot of training there, and there's manufacturer training wrapped around that. So when someone comes in, and they need a question answered and they need something done, we have the resources to help them. What's there? Well, we have websites that we can use. Toyota uses a thing called Service Lane, which is incredible. GM uses a website. Theirs is called Auto Partners that we have access to that provide us a lot of what we call fingertip information to answer quick questions for our customers and also to prepare us for them when they come in so that we can help them. Mm-hmm. That goes all the way into our parts department and clear back to our body shop, as well as even to the technicians. There's certain programs we have up and running all the time for our customer touch points. And then there's what we call basic operation touch points. These are things that we need to be trained at to be good at our job. And, so for our parts employees, the majority of that's online. There's a lot of training that they get online that is there for them. Our technicians do online and hands-on training, as we get to send them to a lot of places from, Portland to California to Texas to wherever to get their training done. Mm-hmm. And that's annual. Every year, every technician has a series of training courses they have to do to stay up and to stay certified and to stay current.
Right.
And so, that's a very, very big deal.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's often overlooked is, just because you were certified on product a year ago or 2 years ago doesn't mean you're certified on it today. All those certifications are pretty much limited to a 1 year time frame. So once you get beyond 1 year, you're not certified anymore.
That's correct.
A lot of people don't understand that. They think, well, this guy was, Toyota certified, 5 years ago. He's a Toyota certified tech. Well, if you don't have the current training within the past 12 months, it's kind of like a pilot's license. You're not current anymore.
That's right. That guy would be 5 years out of certification.
Right. Exactly. And it takes a while to catch all that up.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a lot that goes into that. And so very, very critical. The great thing is because of our, being a dealership and our relationship with General Motors and Toyota, it's awesome. The access to the information that we have is definitely a huge help for us. And it does keep our staff, very advanced and very caught up. Mm-hmm. And then, you can go into, just the tech centers that we get to work with from a technician side, having access to online field engineers that we can reach out to when we have situations and the information that they provide us to work with them. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that to operate one of these every single day.
Yeah. I see one, really big resource that we have now that we've been here for so many years is our personnel. And we have a lot of people that have been here a long time. We have, several techs that have been with us for many, many years. And obviously as they build their technical knowledge over a period of years and in some cases decades, they become tremendously valuable resources to both us and the customer. Why don't you go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit of what, I kind of call the compound effect. You're talking about people that have, every year, another piece of knowledge, another piece of knowledge, another piece of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And the compound effect of that, it grows and grows and grows. And they become a pretty good resource in library. I think, here at Clint Newell Motors, there's, some things that are much different than many places. The auto industry, not every place, but tends to have maybe a little bit higher turnover rate. Because of the way the business operates and the way some people operate, and because of the culture that you try to promote from within the dealership and quite frankly outside of this store and what you do in the community, is really what I call a three-legged stool. It's our employees, it's our customers, and it's our culture and our community here. And that those three pieces have to be there for the customer, for our employee, and for our community. And if they're not there, it's very different. And everybody feels that here. And because of that, there's benefit for us to all want to grow and get better and become good at what we do and become professionals at our trade, because it is rewarding and we do see the long-term results. And the customers that are good long-term customers here, I think they value it as well and they get to experience it. And so, it's been fun. It's sad to see some of those people retire. Obviously we've got to watch some of them retire. It's hard to see them go.
Yep.
But it's awesome because the generation behind that sees that and it inspires them to those want to embrace it can really do the same thing.
And we have some really strong mentorships going on right now where you have a lot of the seasoned employees teaching the younger ones how to do things right and bringing them up the right way, and advancing their learning has been it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah,
both on the technical side as well as the customer handling side. When you drive into our service lane, you have a couple different levels of employees there. You got some that are newer to the company, and then you have some that have been here a long time. And it's nice having that mix. And like you say, the compound effect of having all that knowledge on the service drive for when the customer first comes in, to have people there available that have the knowledge and insight as to what's going on and how things need to go, is really beneficial.
Yeah. And, and that's, I think that a lot of companies miss the value of that and what it pays off for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, we have Rebecca and Bean out there, two amazing service advisors that have been with us for a long time and do a great job. And, I would tell everyone, watch what happens come November, December. And you just watch their desk pile up full of candies and treats and cards. And a lot of the newer advisors are like, well, that'd be cool. And I'm like, well, do what they've done for a long time.
Work hard and it might happen for you someday. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's been great. And, you've built a great crew back there over the years, and, they do a great job, and, we're all really proud of everything that goes on back there. So, Frank, thanks for some time and talking about service and parts today. And, hopefully that explains a few things for some people and gives them a little bit of a feel for what all goes on out there. And we'll wrap it up with that. So, thanks for watching another episode of Talkin' Shop, and we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for future broadcasts, and also like and share on Facebook.